Hey everyone, welcome back. So in this episode, we're going to put in a new engine. So currently we have a 5.3 with an LSA, both of which are unported, aluminum block, but nothing too special. We are going to go to a 6.2 with Frankenstein ported heads, a ported supercharger from Cant, and we're going to put in a new clutch and a few other small items, big cam, get this thing running just right. So it's going to take me a little while to go through the process of building the engine. Gotta clean the block, we gotta machine the block, we gotta put all the stuff in it, measure everything. It takes me a long time to do all that, so bear with me. But we'll get it in there, we'll get it fired up and see how it sounds. All right, y'all, we got you set up on time lapse here. So what are we doing? We are going to be knocking the rust off of the cylinders, right? So we just got a scour brush here and some WD-40, and I think I had showed you in a previous video that these were a little rusty. Like this one here, you can see it's just got like a film on it. It's all rust, just surface rust. So we're gonna knock that off. And then once that's done, we're gonna go over it with a carbide bit. We're gonna hit all the edges and just round everything off so we don't have any stress risers. We're gonna do that around the entire block. And then once that's done, we're gonna pressure wash it and then dry it out. And hopefully by that point, we'll be good to go to start measuring and assembling. So that's the first step. It's a bit of work, shouldn't take too long. Actually, if you can see this here, these two have been cleaned, these two have not. So clearly there is a color difference there. All right, that was probably a pretty eventful time lapse. So we got the block ground down on the edges. Everything's smoothed over, no high points, no stress risers, all that stuff. Looking pretty good. A few things to note. So the cylinders look good. The cam bearings, I mean, they look fine, but when you like actually put your finger on them, they feel a little rough. And I don't know if that's just from sitting. I don't know what that is, the coating coming apart. Gonna have to do a little research on that. Because like that bubbling that you see there is actually the coating on the bearing. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, so we got all the bolt holes chased for the head studs. So that's looking good. Let's see, what else did we do? Got all the passages cleaned out. Washed it, what, 4 times, I think? Top and bottom. So we got all the cylinders WD-40'd. So the next step, I'm gonna put this thing in a bag, and then when I come out here next, we're gonna start measuring for the crank. I'm pretty excited. Everything seems to be in great shape. All the bores and stuff for the lifters look good. Down in here, I tried to smooth all of the oil passages as good as possible. Got a little overzealous over here, but it's fine. I was just trying to smooth this transition. So I did the top side, and then as you saw in the time lapse, I would flip it over and do the other side just to get the radius as smooth as possible on both edges. I think it looks pretty good. You can even see any of that. And then, you know, anything that had been machined from the factory, I just touched up, because some of this stuff they don't do a real good job on. Like all these flashings and stuff from the casting, they're all really, I need to wipe everything down. They're all really pretty rough, and they have all these flashing lines on them. So I just go in there and just ground them all down. And then what'll happen is as the oil travels down into the lifter valley, it should smooth that transition. That's the theory anyway, so we do that on both sides. I did it top and bottom just because I was already there. It's easy to do it now, it's impossible to do it later. So, and then the drains are down there. As you pass oil down, they go through that, down in there, and then drip down into the oil pan and stuff. So you really just want those transitions as smooth as possible. But otherwise, looking great. So there's a lot of things to do, but that's the first step. All right, here we got everything laid out. So what I'm gonna do is organize these 1 through 8, and then I'm gonna rip all the parts off of them, keep them organized. But basically what I need to do is get these pistons soaking. I'm gonna put them in the sonic cleaner with some LA's Totally Awesome, and we'll see how awesome it is. But I'm hoping to not have to scrub any of these. So they all look pretty good. I went and checked all the rings. They all seem to have a pretty good temper to them. And then otherwise, they just need to be marked and disassembled. So let's do that. All right, so we got all the pistons removed, marked, everything's looking good. This is what we're starting with. Pretty good amount of carbon there. And then we're gonna use this stuff here LA is totally awesome. And it says for automobile motors, right here at the top, 5-to-1 ratio. So that's what we'll do. It's gonna be enough to get it up to the ring lands. So what I didn't wanna do was go too far and get into the skirts, because I don't want, this might actually melt off the skirt protection. Let's see what happens. And here we are after 20 minutes. An improvement, but not enough. So we're gonna put her back in, give it maybe an hour. I'm not really sure. Interesting though, it smells like exhaust when I open this thing, which I guess kind of makes sense. It's all carbon, but kind of strange. All right, this is how we start. Very rusty, not looking so good. Let's see how we end. And just a couple moments later, this is what we have. So, doesn't take much in a wire wheel, get her cleaned up. Pretty happy with that. It's all surface rust, so not a big deal. Nothing on the actual saddle itself. So, there we are. So it's admission time. So you last saw I had these in the sonic cleaner. Everything was going okay, and then I realized what I had done. So I put this in with LA's Totally Awesome Cleaner, which has a chemical in it. I think it's sodium hydroxide is the chemical. Anyways, I was using that, and if you use it in a sonic cleaner, apparently what it'll do is it'll create an additional hydrogen atom, and it will allow that atom to then embed itself in your metal. It's called hydrogen embrittlement. And for the most part, I think we escaped unscathed, but in some of these, you can clearly see where there is some change in not only the coloring, but the actual surface itself. I mean, you can't feel it, but you can definitely see that it looks different, right? It's probably the worst one, but there's definitely something there, right? It's not supposed to be there. So what I did was I said, okay, before I have a freak out moment, let me just wire wheel it like I should have from the beginning. I don't know why I didn't. Well, I do know why, because it takes time, and I thought that using the sonic cleaner was the best idea. And then we'll just see what the metal looks like. But you can see that it has etched the surface of the piston a little bit. So right here, and then kind of a circle-y pattern, there is an edge. Now you can't feel that. You can see it, but you can't feel it. And essentially what it amounts to is it was the hydrogen atoms embedding themselves in cracks, and I guess it just forms around the outside of that area. And it looked like this beforehand. And for the most part, it got all of the carbon off. It looked like this one, actually. Just that circle there. And when I saw this happening, I took them out, but they were probably in for 3 hours total. And most people say you shouldn't go longer than an hour. Well, I forgot about that and refreshed myself after the fact. The research that I did, where they tested a metal and then fatigued it with hydrogen embrittlement, and it was an 8% difference, okay? So these are thicker than normal pistons, being as how they're LSA pistons, and the fact that it's just surface and it's not sharp, you can't feel it, which means that detonation should be minimal. We're just gonna roll with it. Now, if I had unlimited money, I would absolutely replace these, but I don't, so we're just gonna make do with what we got. And we're not gonna use the sonic cleaner longer than 45 minutes unless I am using like dish soap. Most people said just Dawn in there is probably the best, and unfortunately I didn't heed that advice. So it is what it is. We're gonna clean these up on the wire wheel, get them all looking like this, and we'll move on to the next step. That's unfortunate. What I am doing now is I pulled the Nova in. I have new front tires. They are about 2 inches shorter on the sidewall, which should be a significant difference, but what I really need to do is I need to get the car lower so that I can get more suspension travel. Right now, I have the coilovers jacked all the way up, and what it's doing is it's actually putting preload on the suspension, right? Because it's just bouncing. It's too much preload. And it's like that in the front and the rear, and you kind of get this porpoising every once in a while because they kind of fight back and forth. So when I get the front down, I'll get the rear down, and then that will help with the launch because I'll have more distance for the travel in the shock, and in the rear, I have more squat. So anyways, that's the plan. That's what we're doing. I'm also gonna take the drive shaft out and have it balanced. There's a place local, $100. Everybody says they're good, so we'll take it out and just see if it needs help. Got the new tires mounted on the wheels today. Obviously, they're a bit shorter. The 26s are on the left. These are like a 24-inch tire. I was worried they were gonna look a little too small. They look okay in this situation. And then next to the rears, they look appropriate. The rears are 26 as well. But when I put them on the front, of course, this is up in the air, so you don't really know how it's gonna look yet. They look kind of small and weird. So we'll see. We'll get this thing down on the ground. I'm gonna lower it, bring it down probably 1.5 inches. And hopefully this is short enough it won't hit on the fenders at full lock or when hitting a bump, because that was the issue, is they would rub every once in a while. See how it goes. We'll have to get the drive shaft done, and then we'll put everything back on and get her down on the ground. So the reason for the drive shaft rebalance is because I had changed the yoke out during the T56 Magnum swap and never had it rebalanced. Took it down to the shop, they added one more washer, fixed my vibration above 128 miles an hour, good to go. The new tires are definitely shorter, they're a different look, but once I raised the car up and got it to a manageable height, I actually like them. I think they look fine. So we're going to keep them. All right, here's a bit of an update. So I have the pistons disassembled from the rods over there. So these are the replacements. I bought these because I had cleaned these in my sonic cleaner mistakenly with LA's Totally Awesome cleaner. These have some etching in the dome, you know, with the power level that I'm running kind of being at the outer edges of where it's comfortable with stock stuff. I didn't want to chance it, so I bought these. I think they were like $75. These things are in pretty good shape. Clearly they're dirty. He went forged, so I kind of got a little come up there from someone else's coming up further. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in a sonic cleaner again, but I'm going to use Dawn this time. Dawn does not introduce any hydrogen molecules into the aluminum. At least that is the theory, and I'm going to keep an eye on them and try to not do them for multiple hours. So, and if none of that works, I will just clean these by hand if I have to. Like I said, they're really not that bad. But that's what they look like now. So when I get them clean, I'm going to weigh them. I weighed all of these without the rings and everything on them, and I wrote down the actual gram weights, so that way I know if there's any huge differences. There's a 2 gram difference between these two cylinders, but of course they're opposing, so that should be okay. All right, and sometime later we have some clean pistons. So this was just Dawn in there for maybe an hour and a half. Like it maxes out at 99 minutes. Obviously the coating on the sides is coming off. It's really not a big deal. That's just for longevity. But they look great. I hit them with a wire brush afterwards, just by hand. Just made sure everything and all the passages were clean and good to go. And those came out great. So these were somewhat low miles. I think he said it was under like, you know, probably under 100,000, but you never know. And honestly, as many junkyard LS engines as people put together that don't even go this far as to clean everything, they just kind of slap dirty stuff together and it runs fine forever. I think that going the extra mile on these will be no problem. So the next steps we're going to do, we're currently cleaning everything in gasoline that needs to be cleaned in gas. So the rings were all soaking in gas. I have scrubbed all of these one by one. Normally I would keep them in order, but at this rate, it just would have taken forever to try and keep them in order. So they're all just sitting in there stewing while I was cleaning the pistons. So when I get these done, we'll go ahead and put those with their corresponding cylinders. We'll put those in gasoline just to get the rods cleaned up. And then the next step, we need to figure out what's going on with the oil pump. So this is the stock LSA oil pump. Basically, people say as long as this is in good shape, this is the same as the aftermarket. I think it's like a 295 Melling pump. So I'm going to take this guy apart and take a look at it. The crank needs cleaned up a little bit. I need to get some steel wool on it and just kind of get the surface rust off, but otherwise it should be fine. But then we need to start testing and measuring everything, and that's a whole long process that we'll maybe do tomorrow. Before I change anything, I should show you what it looks like. So these rocker arms I got used, local. Guy said he had just put the bronze kit in, spun a rod bearing or cam bearing or something, and then disassembled the motor. These are filthy. Those specs were not. This pan was completely clean before any of this stuff was in here. I haven't even shaken this up yet. This thing has just been set in here and gasoline's been poured in it and set overnight. So that is a wild amount of fleck. So I'm gonna have to clean each one of these. Some money saved, some time spent. Oh well. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna assemble some heads. So these beautiful Frankenstein heads, well, they're stock heads, but they've been kissed by Frankenstein. They are absolutely gorgeous. All the ports and everything just look so good. So we're gonna go ahead and start assembling these. And then when that's done, we're basically ready to put the engine together. All right, we got both heads assembled, looking good. So we can move on to the next step. We'll have to reassemble the pistons. That shouldn't take too long, and then we just start on everything else. Nice. All right, so it's been a little while. Obviously, we have some progress. So we have basically assembled the entire engine. I didn't put it on video because you guys have seen me do that a million times. You've seen other people do it a million times. We have basically a completed engine at this point. So the oil pan that's in the car is the one I will be using. It's an F-body pan. So I don't have the windage tray. I don't have the oil pan. I don't have all the oil pump stuff hooked up yet because I'm just going to wait until I get the pan. What I am doing right now is measuring pushrod length. So I have a pushrod length checker in here. And I am going to set each one of these because I have the Johnson low travel and they all have to be measured. So we got this guy in here. We're going to just start the process. It's going to take me a while, but then we'll know what each cylinder wants and what each cylinder will get. So I had to buy a new dial caliper, which is fine because I didn't have one that was long enough. I had a 6-inch, not an 8-inch, but I have fortunately these set measurement points. So I added the 4-inch and the 3-inch together, and then we got 7 inches. I zeroed this thing out at 7 inches exactly, so I know that's correct. This is going to be correct, and then I'll start my measurements from there. Because the push rods are most likely going to be, I did one of these already without this thing. 7.5125 was the intake push rod. So I will set it up again and I'll measure with this because I just got this morning. And then if it measures out correctly, then we will continue doing the rest. So this process was something I needed to get done because the shop is clean, or it was clean, for engine building. I'm gonna put this thing back in the bag. We're gonna work on the roll cage next. That is a process I've never done, so that will have some learning involved. But you know, it's something I have to do for the race. So this will get mothballed, and I have kind of told myself, as excited as I am to get this done and installed in the car, I'm not going to do it until I get the roll cage done. So once the roll cage is done, I will take the engine that's in the Nova out and we'll put this one in, and then we'll just put the Nova engine that's in there now just kind of on the side. And if anything happens to this while tuning and waiting for the race to start, we will have a backup. And then we'll see what happens with it after that. So there we are. Absolutely stoked to get this thing in the car and running. It's going to be a beast. Huge valves. Well, I should say huge runners, stock valves. But there we are, fully ported, looking good. ARP hardware. So this is a stock bottom end. Let me just walk you through this actually, because I probably haven't done this yet. So this is a 2012 LSA, came out of a CTSV, and essentially the guy sold it to me saying that it had a knock in the bottom end. He took it to the machine shop, they mic'd everything out, checked everything was good to go. They recommended a little bit of an overbore, like 10 thousandths over. I measured everything. There's a slight variation between the top and the bottom of the bore. Obviously, it's a little bit around, as most of these blocks are. For what I'm doing and the price level that I am trying to get done, this worked out just the way it is. So it's a stock bottom end. I put different pistons in it. They're stock, but they're from a different motor. Stock rods, stock crank, XP King bearings. It has over there a dedicated motorsports, which is made by Texas Speed, PDS Max cam. So it's basically like a Texas Speed stage 4 blower cam, positive displacement. So that's essentially what the specs come out to. And then the Frankenstein stage 1 ported heads. And other than that, it's stock. So it's stock valves, stock bottom end, good size cam. The blower over there in a box is fully ported by Kong. So it's a stage X port. So, I mean, really, realistically, this thing should make like 1,000 at the crank minimum. Well, I shouldn't say minimum, but most likely. And then we will see what it does to the wheels. We got LS9 gaskets and ARP LSA head studs, the ones that actually are made for this motor. I have heard you can use LS3 studs, but you just double up the washers. Wasn't really trying to do that, so we got the right ones. And then a Melling 10355 pump over there that I'll be putting in, and then miscellaneous hardware. So there we have it. This guy is just absolutely gorgeous. Happy with how it came out. All the clearances are where I want it to be. It's 30 thousandths on the main. I put the top ring at 28, the second ring at 30. And actually, strangely, the pistons that I got, the second ring was already at 30. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they don't do that from the factory, but that's what it was set at. So we got titanium retainers and Frankenstein springs. These are good to 7 thousandths lift. And one of the things that I'm not super happy about, but I will run them for now, is I bought these LS3 style rockers off a guy local. They have the cheap bronze bushings in them to replace the stock bearings. The problem with these are they, over time, it doesn't take real long, it doesn't seem like, they start wearing out the bronze because it's, you know, it's the least tough metal in the system, and then you'll start getting some play. So I think I'll run these for now. I'm going to bring a CHE kit. I haven't bought it yet, but I'll bring it with me on Redwood Rally, and if anything happens while we're driving around, then I will swap them out on the road and probably gain some power because these do flex a little bit. So anyways, they're not the best, but they are all clean and they're all good to go. Oh, and then the Johnson lifters in there, the 2116 LSR, I think is what they are. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start measuring push rods. All right, it's a new day. So today's the day we pull out the 5.3. It's been a long time coming. We have the new engine over there, ready to go in. The thing we need is the push rods, which I've ordered, should be here next week sometime. So potentially, if everything goes okay, we could be driving this next week. So that's awesome. All right, here's a familiar sight, huh? So the 5.3 is almost ready to come out. We have the exhaust, blower, everything pretty much ready to go. The drive shaft's out. So the next steps, transmission, wiring, front accessories, and then we'll go ahead and just pull this thing out. I'm hoping an hour-ish. Going to dinner and movie with the wife tonight, so gonna work on the rest of it tomorrow, but I'm hoping to at least get this out today. All right, so a new day. The last I left you, we were pulling whatever was in here out, and there it is. Old 5.3. Pretty sure that the cylinder head's cracked. I believe it was the second cylinder back here, or the third cylinder back, second from the back. Had some water on it, and I have been losing water when I drive the car. So this may be getting a new set of AFR heads, or if I can find a 799 that's in good shape, then I'll throw that on there. But wasn't super welcomed, but I knew there was something going on, so that kind of makes sense. So now what we're doing is we're going to swap. So we're going to swap all the parts and stuff that are on this over here back and forth. We have purchased the improved racing oil baffle kit for the F-body pan. I was on the fence about that one, but I figured with as much money and time as I have in this engine, it probably would be smart to just put that little piece of insurance in there. So we're gonna take the pan off. We're gonna get it all cleaned up. There's a few things I need to cut. So there's an ear here, and I'm not sure if it's on the 6.2 block or not, but it keeps me from getting the starter in and out while the starter's in the car. So that would be a nice thing to make sure that it's done. And I think that was really about it. We need to fit the new clutch, which I'm pretty sure is going to be fine, but it is new to me, so we will see. I don't know if that boss is on there. And yeah, I do have to cut that one because there it is. So yeah, got a little bit of work to do. I'm not going to time lapse it or anything. You guys have seen me work on these engines 1,000 times, and it's an LS. You know what those do. So let's get everything swapped, and then we will come back with you. All right, it's the next day. We got a lot accomplished last night, so we got most of the stuff moved off here. I think the only thing we have left is the valve cover standoffs here. We got the oil pan put on with the improved racing baffle, so that was looking good. So now we need to drill the crank. So I did find that this keyway does match up with the F-body balancer that I have. As you can see there, the pins that I drilled are at 3 and 9, and basically I'm going to do one at 12, and that'll line up with the keyway. So I'm not trying to figure out these two. One of these was drilled before the other one. One of them drilled with a different fixture, and they're not quite in line with each other, but they line up perfect on this crank because it's already been drilled. So we're going to do that. We're going to get it down on the ground. We're going to put the clutch on. We'll need to align the bell housing, which will take a few minutes. We need to pre-lube. So I'm going to get my garden sprayer. We're going to put it in here at the oil port and just pre-lube this thing, give it a few turns just so we can get the oil flowing around, try and get it where we need it to go and get it ready for first fire up. So let's get to it. All right, so here we are trying to get the clutch on. And before I do that, I gotta take out this pilot bearing that I have no idea how old it is. It's very crunchy feeling. So I said, all right, let's get out the slide hammer and we'll take this thing out. Well, that didn't work. That snapped right off. So the idea now is I'm gonna TIG weld this washer to the inside because this nut that screws into my slide hammer is a little bit too big. I won't have anything to attach it to. So if we TIG that to there, get a good bite, and then TIG that to the washer, should work. Either that or I'll use bread, but I think this should be fine. Let's see how this goes. All right, well, that worked. So we did as we said. I used a MIG because I didn't want to set up the TIG. It would take too long. But farted a couple welds on there, and out she came. Good to go. I'm gonna clean the hole, cool her off, put the new one in, move on to the next step. Oh yeah, put the valve covers on just to protect everything. Looking pretty good. Boy, what fun we're having. So most of today was spent making sure that the bell housing was in spec with all of the adjustable dowels and stuff that I have. I just coincidentally happened to put my 7-degree offset dowels in the up orientation, which was perfect. So that was great. However, I then ran into some clutch issues. So I didn't realize, but there's a specification clearance between the floater plate and the friction disc and the flywheel of 20 to 25 thousandths. And they send you all of these spacers. And this was a used kit, so I just threw everything on there and then read about needing to check the clearances, and it was way off. So then spent the next hour taking shims out, measuring things, doing this, doing that. Ended up using half the amount of shims that they had. So we're good to go there. So now we're gonna clean up the rest. Like I said, this is a used clutch. There's a little bit of wear on here, but being as how it's a 1200, there's plenty of meat left in the actual disc itself. We're gonna run it and we're gonna hope for the best. Worst case scenario, I'll put the spec clutch back in. It looked great when I took it out, but it's a single disc and it's not rated for this kind of power. Hoping the 1200 foot-pounds is a high margin and I don't need that much and I can meet that goal, but time will tell. So I'm gonna continue putting this together, and then hopefully at some point this will be on the ground and not working on this anymore. I need to clean the supercharger. It's pretty gross looking. I'll show you what's involved in that, but that's gonna take me a little while too. So there we go. All right, we are almost at the end of another day. We have a lot accomplished. So I figured a few things out on the clutch. We are good to go. Everything is how it's supposed to be. And this is a thing of beauty here. Watch this. Perfect. So there should be no issues getting the transmission in. Everything's been swapped over. Everything I can remember. I don't think there's anything else. We are ready to just stab this guy in here. So I gotta take the valve covers off because they don't clear the hood. Otherwise, good to go. Let's do it. All right, it's the end of the night. We have got a lot accomplished. So I'm not able to put all the front accessory stuff on, so I'm waiting on the push rods from Manton. There is a port here that, if you don't know, you can plug in like a garden sprayer and you can pre-lube the engine. Well, the top of the engine won't get any oil until the push rods show up, so I'm not gonna do it until then. So all this is gonna stay the way it is. Basically, the headers are on, the engine's bolted in, the starter's in. We have a lot of stuff underneath already done. Stuff on top is not done yet. I'm gonna put the transmission in tomorrow, and let's see what else. Oh yes, blower that I bought that had been ported. Looks like it lived in like the rust belt or something, like it's super oxidized and gross. A lot of guys online were recommending an aluminum cleaner. So I bought this one. We'll see how this stuff works. It may or may not make a difference. If it doesn't, I may just paint it black. I haven't really decided yet, but it is definitely pretty nasty. There's the port work. Super nice stuff, just not looking the way I want. So if I get it like closer to this color or like a natural aluminum, that'd be great. So the other thing is I have to take this pulley off. I'm gonna have to clearance the snout because the pulley I have is way smaller than this one. This is a 245. I have a 238 on the other one. So that's gonna have to be pressed off and the other one pressed on. And I think that's all that has to be done here. All right, so we got the push rods in. Manton did a great job. Actually, I checked every one of them and they were all exactly how long I requested them to be. So that's great. Shout out to them. So I put everything in and then decided to pre-lube as I usually do. And that did not work. And I was very confused. I did it with a hand pump and couldn't get any oil to flow out. I'm like, what the hell? So then I said, all right, let's plug in an oil pressure sensor and see if I'm actually getting any pressure. Because clearly I was getting pressure in the tank. I could, move the valve and it would depressurize. So I plugged in the sensor for the gauge cluster, and that one didn't read any pressure. So I was like, all right, let's use the Holley one. So I plugged in the Holley one, and it read like 0 or 1 sometimes. Very rarely it read 1. I'm like, how much pressure does this damn thing make? So come to find out, these can make up to like 30 PSI typically, if you really try. So I'm guessing like 5 or 10 if you aren't. So I said, what the hell? So I regulated my air tank down to like 25 PSI, threw it in this port, and then hit it with some air and spun the engine over at the same time, and it still wasn't getting any pressure. I'm like, what is going on? So I took the oil filter off. I mean, the second I cracked that thing from tight to loose, oil draining right out. And I'm like, okay, so clearly it's getting oil. Something else is going on. So I put the oil filter back up in there. I didn't even take it all the way out. I just loosened it and then cleaned up the oil, put it back in there, came over here, pressurized the tank again, and I started getting oil immediately out of the push rods. So what the hell? It seemed to me like maybe there was an air bubble in the oil filter or something, which doesn't make any sense to me, but for some reason it wasn't allowing oil to come out of the filter. So as soon as I cracked it, it let that bubble out, I guess, and then oil, boom, right away. So we're getting oil out of all the push rods. And I sat here with, actually cranked it up to like 35, 40 PSI, and this thing was just chooching. So feeling good about that. So I'm gonna put the valve back in there because I could be putting the transmission in right now. The way I was doing it, I have to hold the air sprayer on there and it just takes forever. So we only have, see, I put 6 quarts in this thing and we are currently at 4. So after 2 quarts, I have oil in the top end. So that's great. So I'm going to pressurize this and then I'll go work on the transmission and we'll come back when this is empty. All right, coming to you on location. So I am trying to put the transmission in. We are in a good place, ready to do this. And what did I find? Let me see if I can show you. Well, the first issue is this top one here. This is the bleeder. I have a remote bleeder that I was going to use on my BMW, just had sitting around that I didn't plan on using on this car, but I was putting the transmission in the first time and I broke off the 90 degree that I had sticking out of there. So we are using the TIC remote bleeder. It's TPSBL, I believe is the part. Hopefully it doesn't leak. I had a cheap one before this that leaked, which is why I was using the one that I was using. So we have gone out and switched it. So then I started putting the transmission in and things were going okay. And we're this close. That is about 1.1 inches. I know that because I have measured it. Come to find out, there is 2 different pilot bearings, and for some odd reason, I thought maybe it was a good idea to use the larger pilot bearing because that's what the crank had in it from the CTSV. Come to find out, that pilot bearing does not fit the transmission bell housing combination that I have. So now I have to take the transmission out. I have to figure out how to get this giant bell housing out of here, which takes forever. And I have to take the clutch off. And then once I get all that done, I still don't have a puller. So I ordered one of those with a new pilot bearing. That'll be here tomorrow. So I'm gonna get all of this out and then work on that because that sounds like a great time. So there we go. We got some good news. We got the clutch out, bell housing, all that stuff. As you can see, we got the old throw out taken out and we have a new one here. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that guy in there, put the clutch back on, bell housing, transmission, and hope for the best. This is gonna take me a little while because there's like 1,000 bolts goes around this thing, but we'll check back with you when it's done. All right. All right, so here's the current issue. We have the pilot bearing replaced and now the transmission's trying to be installed. Everything's pretty close. And when you look at it, you can tell that when you push forward, get my footing here, you can see the slave bottom out right there. And that's it. That's as far as it goes. So what in the hell is going on there? It's almost like the wrong clutch or something. Ugh. We have accomplished a few things. I got everything cleaned up here. As you last saw, there was metal shavings everywhere. What were we doing? So, a few things. I had a hole here that I had no idea how to plug, so I used a 1/4-inch pipe plug. Had to tap it. That took a long time, longer than I expected it to. Okay, that's fine. I tried to use some aluminum brightener on this. I'll throw in a picture of how it used to look. It looks better, but there's like black pitting and stuff on it. I think after the race, I'm going to take this off and I'm going to paint it black or silver, possibly some engine enamel, just so it lasts a little longer. The bottom I did first. I scrubbed a little harder. It looks okay. I just can't get in the little nooks and crevices and stuff. It really should be like media blasted, but it's not that big a deal. And then I fit the front pulley. So I took this to Jesse Olson over at Olson Custom Works earlier today. He pressed off the ZPE pulley hub that was on here and put on one of his. which is awesome because this is the F-body offset that I need for my pulley configuration. So then I just zapped on his, but it does require a little bit of machining because it's so small. It's a 2.35, I believe. Yeah. And what you have to do is you have to grind off a tab here. There's a couple tabs, actually. You can see what's left. And then you have to grind all the way around. He usually recommends 4 pieces of tape to check the clearance, put the pulley on. If it feels good with 4 pieces of tape, take it off. You're good to go, because with all the with heat and everything, this thing will expand a little bit, and it does so on the snout as well, and you don't want this thing locking up on there after, you know, the first run. So the aluminum cleaner that I tried, this stuff here, this will burn your lungs. Before I opened the window, I had it all closed up in here, and that stuff's pretty strong. I really wanted to do the whole blower case, but I'm really worried about wiping out the bearings here, so I'm just not going to do it at all. I'm just going to leave it. It was only 20 bucks for that. I can use it for all kinds of different things. It looks fine. You can barely see any of this anyways once it's installed, once all the stuff's on it. So, and then the other part that you saw was me machining the back here. So from the factory, they have these tabs here because the fuel rails go on the other side. If you get into an accident, I guess it keeps the fuel rails from hitting the firewall or something along those lines. Anyways, when you run aftermarket lines, they have to go through here, and I needed to make space. So I used a body saw first, a little Harbor Freight guy. It was okay. It works a lot better if you use transmission fluid. And then I switched over to the 1/4-inch die grinder and just got after it. So one of the things that I had learned online is that if you use transmission fluid on your bit, your carbide bit, man, it will just fling the chips like nobody's business, and it'll stay clean. I was having an issue when I tried doing this. I think I was porting the snout for the other blower. It was clogging up, and I'd have to, like, you know, hit it with a wire wheel, and it was just a real pain in the ass. So I found out to use transmission fluid. It helps just throw all the chips out. So that was cool. So that's done. This is done. I'm going to put it back together tomorrow. So let's talk about the transmission. I don't really know what is going to come of this. I have some guesses. So I don't think that a fix is cutting the slave cylinder, that plastic piece that goes behind the throwout bearing. I don't think that that's the fix. I think the fix is a new adjustable slave cylinder. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow I'm going to call McLeod. This is a clutch for a CTSV. I have an F-body transmission, an F-body bell housing, and for all intents and purposes, an F-body from the engine rear. I don't know why I thought the CTSV clutch was the right one to get. I don't know if the spacing on the actual clutch is different. Clearly it is than the F-body. They are different part numbers. Should have been a dead giveaway. I was fixated on the engine dictating what the clutch and transmission was going to do, when I should have just done everything for an F-body. All the LS stuff just bolts together anyways. So I will catch back with you tomorrow once I figure out what's going to happen here. I really was not planning on buying a $500 Tilton adjustable slave cylinder. I don't want to wait for it. I didn't want to buy it. But if that's what it takes to get everything to work, okay. The only other option is the spec clutch that I have. It's rated at 850 foot-pounds, which, I mean, in a light car, I'm probably right at 850 crank if everything goes okay. So it might be all right. I don't know. I need to figure out whatever the cheapest, best option is and go with that, and preferably the fastest, because I need to get 500 break-in miles before I tune this thing, and it's really making me nervous because I'm running out of time. So catch back with you tomorrow. Okay, here's the update. So we're not going to go in a path that I was hoping to go in, but we do have a path forward. So I called McLeod, and they said that I just plain have the wrong clutch. They said they don't know if I bought a shorter, like a Tilton makes a shorter slave cylinder throwout bearing assembly, and they said that it's possible that that would work, but they don't know. I did not call Tilton because I don't want to spend $500 and wait 3 days on a maybe. So what I do have is my old clutch from the last setup. So this went through Redwood Rally last year. And I mean, there's minimal scarring on the flywheel, which I can't reuse because this is a 6-bolt. But before I bought the twin disc, I bought this Ram flywheel that will bolt to the engine and allow me to use this clutch. So then I have more options. This is the actual clutch disc. This is a stage 3. So this is good for 830 foot-pounds of torque. And it looks great. It actually looks really good. And I drove this before Redwood last year. I drove it on Redwood, and I drove it last year when I took everybody out for rides and everywhere else last year. So surprisingly, this is in really good shape, even though it was used on the street, and this is definitely a, you know, a race clutch. When I bought this clutch, it needed rebuilt, right? So the pressure plate and the flywheel were both rebuildable, which is why I bought this assembly. So I sent them out and had them rebuilt. The clutch came with a 3+ disc that I never used. And I measured it, and it looks in pretty good shape. It was definitely warped. It's going to need a little bit of break-in, but so does the engine. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this disc in. This one's good for 950 foot-pounds. I don't know what the engine's going to produce, so it's going to be kind of hard to say which one I need. I would love to have this as a backup. I want to run this one because it has a higher capacity, and hopefully the engagement's a little bit smoother because it's a full-face disc and not just a puck. So we're going to run with this guy. Yeah, what else can I say? It sucks. I got to take the bell housing and transmission and everything back out, but at least I can potentially start the car today. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to get busting on this. I need to find some dowel pins for this flywheel. I couldn't get these out. They must have like Loctited them in or something. I used some pliers. I don't have a slide hammer to get that out. So, but other than that, it's ready to put in. So there we are. I'll get back with you when I get it in. All right, so clearly we have kind of jumped ahead a bit here. So we got the clutch and everything in, put the transmission in, and then I bled the slave cylinder. So with that new line in there and that copper washer, I wasn't sure that it was gonna leak or not. So I just did the standard procedure, took the remote bleeder, put it into the reservoir, and just pumped the pedal a bunch of times. It actually feels great, have no leaks. So we got the drive shaft in there, filled the transmission, put the exhaust on, finish up the wiring, put the stuff on the engine, and it's ready to fire. So we have a few steps to do before then, but I'll catch up with you midway. All right, I purchased a Badlands kit off Amazon. It's supposed to be a really good company that just happened to sell on Amazon. And then I had my old exhaust cut out wireless stuff because theirs is not wireless. And I said, hey, you know, if I hook this up correctly, does this work? Sure does. Nice. For the most part, that's exactly what I wanted because I didn't want to have to just use a button. It's kind of nice having it on a key fob. So we're going to hook her up that way. All right, so here's a progress update. So we got everything marked up. We got it cut out. We got it smoothed, and we got it transitioned nicely, just how I wanted it. There's about a 1/4 inch around this thing, just to weld to. Pretty nice. I'll get you a picture up inside. But essentially, we're just going to weld this guy on. Need to get more shielding gas. I was able to do the other flanges that actually have the turn down on them. I'll show you those in a sec, but I am almost out of gas. So we will get you a view up in here, and then we'll work on getting this done. All right, here's the view up into the pipe. So as you can see, it's pretty close. This is just being held on by hand, but for the most part, that's about how it goes. So that should be plenty of flow. As you can see, it's straight out of the header. So pretty happy with that. Just got to duplicate it on the other side there. And then I'll show you the flanges. And here we are with the turn down portion. So I kind of marked where they're supposed to be. I did not do amazing welds. They look okay. Certainly better than these welds where I got them way too hot. But, you know, we're learning. It's a learning technique. It is what it is. Should be fine for what it's doing. Just turning down the exhaust where there's a big leak. It really doesn't even need to be fully welded. But I did because it's good practice. Anyway, so like I said, this part needs to be duplicated over here. I don't mind that. Just all this stuff has to be cut out. I'm gonna have to do that tomorrow because I'm running out of time. But looking pretty good. That should definitely increase flow. I mean, these mufflers are straight through, so I don't really think they're too restrictive. This is my cross member. Isn't that beautiful? I really wanted to get the exhaust as close up into the body as possible, and that was the result. It's really not that bad. And if you watch Engine Masters before they move to HBO or whatever, they said that doesn't even hurt. So anyway, this is gonna help. Moving on. Exhaust, so we got the cutouts all welded up, looking pretty good. Got a little too hot in some areas, but you know, kind of the standard for me in stainless. I'll get you a video on the inside. So I was able to get it welded up, and then I came back in with a grinder, and I just kind of smoothed everything out as best I could. Obviously there's sugaring on the inside. I didn't back purge it or anything, and it was too hot to begin with, but it smoothed out pretty good. Looks good on the inside for the most part. Focus, there we go. it's basically a straight shot. So that should be just fine. So what we'll do is we'll get her on the car and see how it looks. All right, and it's the next day. Here's an update. So we got the exhaust put in, looking good. Everything underneath the car is basically done. I have started on spark plug wires. We're gonna do accessories. I'm gonna take this tank out, which I only got 4 quarts in it. I'm not sure what the holdup here is, but I had pressure on it for the last 2 days and it's just been going real slow. Fortunately, I did get oil up in the top end, so I was not really worried about it. Just normally it'll just divert through the oil pump and down into the pan, I believe. So I'm not sure why this one isn't doing that, but it isn't. So we're just gonna move on. So yeah, spark plug wires shouldn't take me too much longer. Already got the other side done. And then we're gonna do accessories, and I don't know, I may try and fire it before I get all the stuff on the front, just in case there's a cam sensor issue. So I'm going from 24x 1x, so 24 crank 1x cam, to 58.4. And I have heard conflicting details that you either have to change the wiring or just change the computer. I'm just gonna change the computer and see how it does. If it doesn't run, well, then we'll change the wiring. And most of it I can get to back here, which is cool because I have this, where is it? I have this extension harness, this guy here. So if I needed to, I can just swap the wires here. I don't have to get into this portion. So I think that's what I'll do, is I'll just put all the accessories and stuff on, barring any major issues internally, which I hope to not have. There's no reason to not put it all on. So we're just gonna hope for the best and just get to it. All right, here we are sometime later. Let's say a few hours at least. Just been kind of buttoning things up. So like one of those small things that I did was I radiused the hole for the IAC in this cheap throttle body because it does like to whistle. So hopefully that helps. Just a lot of little things. I'm not going to bore you with them. At this point, we are ready to test the fuel system, make sure that we can pressurize and won't have any leaks. Once that's done, we're going to make the small change in the tune from, like I said, 24 1x to 58 4x, and hope that when we go to crank this thing, it just cranks and fires. All right, we got the computer changed over to 58. We don't have any leaks, so we're going to go ahead and just prop the camera up here, get the door open, and see if she fires up. So give me just 1 sec. That's nice to see. At idle. Wow. That's really high. shut her down. Nice. Man, that feels good. All right, let's get the radiator in. Let's get some water in this thing, and we'll fire it up. Wow, I did not have this on my bingo card. So what you're looking at is the backside of the head, dripping water. What? What the hell? It's like seeping out from underneath the head. What? How is this possible? Oh my God. How was I freaking out? So the first thing I did was I pulled out the spark plug to see if the cylinder was full. It was not. That was a good sign. I said, okay, maybe it's not the head gasket. So I started thinking, like, what kind of water is over here? We got fuel, we got wires, but there's really no water. Oh yeah, steam port. I left this top one loose when I took everything apart, and it was just leaking from there and rolling down the head, making it look like it was coming from the head gasket. Holy crap. So I'm gonna fill this a little more and just make sure that's what the problem was, but wow, did my energy just hit the floor for a little bit there. All right, we will see how this goes. All right, we are in much better shape now. The leak was just the steam port on the backside, so everything's looking good. We have it filled up, wait for it to get up to temperature, and then we will check everything over, but so far, so good. So if you were curious how to make a geyser out of your car, there's a plug here on my car. Maybe you have one. I use it for burping air out of my intercooler system. And if you leave that out and then turn your like monstrous intercooler pump on max and then turn that on, you'll get a steady stream of geyser water that sprays everywhere. So now you know. Cool. First test drive with the roll bar in, first test drive on the new engine, new clutch. Gosh, what else is new? New supercharger. We got a lot of new stuff going on here. Let's hope it goes well. I'll catch back with you on the road. All right, initial impressions. Car runs really good. Actually, I'm pretty surprised. The closed loop compensation has definitely taken over, which I'm sure is part of the reason why it's running so good. But everything shifts really good. I could probably bleed the clutch one more time, but it actually works just fine. Just doesn't feel quite as strong as it used to. When driving around, the other thing is the passenger bar rattles a lot, which, you know, only in race mode is that really a problem, but it is kind of annoying. And I'm gonna jump out and just make sure nothing's leaking. So I'll check back with you in a sec. All right, it's actually looking really good. The bottle is full, but it was full before I started, so I'm not gonna worry about that. Overall, pretty happy. I have one wire down there that's getting kind of close, but no big deal. Be funny to get home. No weird errors, no weird drips. Looking good. Let's go. I guess we're running a little lean. Wow. We need to fix that tune like soon. Today I'm going to cut some big holes in my hood. So let me show you what I got here. So since I got the car painted in Tijuana, this started to appear. It was a very small crack, probably about as big as my finger. And then slowly, as I started washing the car, it started to spread. So as you can see, there's a line right there. I think that's about where it stops. So if I were to pick on this, it would probably break off right there. I know this is cringeworthy, but at the same time, it's gotta be done. There's actually water in there, if you can see that. So what we're gonna do, I bought some hood vents to hopefully remedy this issue. So these hood vents are from becool.com. And I'm thinking they're gonna go a lot like that right there. So we're gonna identify how big this crack is, and we're gonna cut around it and get this guy fit in there. This is a daunting task. I'm not taking it lightly, but I think it'll be pretty good and functional. So let's let's get to it. All right, let's hope I don't regret doing this. I don't know why I would. It needs to be done. I just need to see how thick this is and how far it reaches. Oh, gross. Well, that looks like a 1/4 inch of Bondo to me. That's very unfortunate. Holy crap. There it is. Whoa. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Well, we did it now. No turning back. Whoa. That is so unprepared and should not have had Bondo attached to it. And I don't even know anything about bodywork. Okay, let's cut that off and move on. All right, GoPro doing GoPro things. Had you on time lapse. It took 2 pictures and shut off. So what I have done, I just set out a grid. I needed to have places that I could measure reliably. So I set a center stripe, and then I put a strip here and made sure that it was the same distance from there to the hood and there to the hood. And then I put that stripe, and then I measured to make sure that it was square as well. So now we have a good spot to put things. This one is right where I want it. It's covering the hole. The hole's about right there. We're gonna call it a hole. It's not a hole yet. And then this one I'm just trying to get squared up, but what I did was I just marked each corner in case it gets moved. So now I'm just getting this one right where I need it, but I think I like that. So essentially, if you look at it, this edge is aligned to the center of the hood. And the idea here, if you look at an old emblem from a Chevy, what's it look like? It looks like that, yeah? So you got the pointy edges come out to the side, and then the flat is on the bottom. Now I could have done it that way, but it looked kind of weird. So I think it looks pretty good like that. Here, you know what? Even though it took me 10 minutes to get this straight, we'll align it to there. And while I don't hate that, I don't know, it looks kind of weird. I think it's the shape of this vent. It is kind of not square here at the bottom. And then it just, I don't know, maybe I do like it that way better. I don't know. I'm gonna keep playing with it. Even though I marked this, I can take that mark off. We'll see. Let me think about this. Alrighty, here's an update. So we got the holes cut. We got them painted. Everything actually looks pretty good. So what I did was I just did a hole saw in the corners. I could have done like square edges, but square edges might cause the paint to crack and start moving. And I don't need that additional airflow, whatever, square inch it might be afterwards. It looks a little jagged. It's from the paint. I went a little over the edges intentionally, just in case some of it was bare metal. There is a lot of filler here. You probably can't see it at this point, but like that's probably an 1/4 inch right there. There's an 1/8 right there. So clearly they flattened the whole hood using filler, which, is standard, but you're supposed to use as little as possible. And I don't really see that, but you get what you pay for. Anyhow, pretty happy with it. So we're gonna start drilling. We have our marks here. We're just gonna do corners and then we'll start doing all the other ones. That's gonna be a long process, so we'll put you back on time lapse. Here we are, closer to midnight than I would like, but all good. So I did this side first, came out pretty good. I did notice that there's a gap here, and I said, well, that seems weird. So I looked underneath, and basically I'm gonna say that the issue is because there is Bondo on my hood that's kind of thick, and these are really not the longest rivets that they provide. And this is not the kit's fault whatsoever. This is clearly my fault, and then I proceeded to use them when I knew I probably shouldn't have. So this is the only gap here. All the rest of them, I pushed down hard enough that it sucked the hood, or sucked the vent down onto the hood. So it's all good there. This side, however, not my favorite. So what do we have here? if you can even tell on the camera, which, you know, the people who are really paying attention can probably tell, these are not all the same type of rivets, because I didn't have only stainless rivets in my little kit. They send you stainless, they're beautiful. I want stainless. That's how I want it to be. However, they are very short. They are like 5/16 of an inch. They're tiny, right? Not even a quarter. They pulled through in these 3 here, so I had a hell of a time getting them cut because they're stainless, right? So they're really strong, which is cool if you're not trying to take them off. So I gouged the aluminum a little bit, which I'm not so happy about. I could probably clean it up with like a red Scotch-Brite or something, but you know, you're gonna scratch the paint unless you tape it off. Anyways, we'll see what happens with that. But I had to use some of the ones that I had, which, like I said, don't match. These are just steel-coated rivets. And then on the other side, they pass all the way through, as you would expect in a rivet to do. So some of these, I think these are mine. This is theirs, right? So it's flush, which is it's not really what you want at high speed. Long story short, not my favorite using those rivets. I really probably should drill them all out and redo them. But what I'm gonna do is nothing until these fly off. I'll contact the company. We'll go from there. See about maybe purchasing new ones. And I'm gonna use longer rivets because this is gonna suck. But at the end of the day, they are installed, they are in. I like the way they look. Hopefully they're functional. Let's see if we can get some different angles here. They look pretty cool from inside the car, which is a bonus. It definitely takes it from just a 4-door regular car to, hey, why does that guy have louvers on his hood? But there it is. Okay, so we are at the end of our video. Kind of jumped around a little bit, but essentially what we have, I'll use my knee here. What we have is a fully installed, running well, 6.2, ported everything with small headers that I can't really do much about right now. That should run really good. So we got to do another 400 miles. I have some miles on it already. And then we can do a tune, refresh. Right now I just added a little bit of fuel just to keep it running and happy. It's on E85. It's going to be on E85 until I can get back from Redwood and make a pump gas tune. And then possibly we'll get it on the dyno, and we'll do a bunch of prep work. So the next video is going to be prep work, getting this thing dialed in. I have a 5-inch intake coming for it, so I'm going to have to make a big old hole over here somewhere and figure out how to make all that work. But that'll be in the next one. Sorry, again, my energy level's kind of low today because I didn't anticipate being out here for 4 hours doing this, though I should have. It's actually more like 6.5 hours. So just didn't anticipate being out here 6.5 hours. But it is a lot of work, so it should have went faster with the right rivets. Let's just put it that way. But anyways, I'm very happy with how the car is. It's still super low in the front. I need to try and raise the front up a little bit. It's just too low. It drags on everything. And getting in and out of my back driveway here, it's like just scraping the ground the whole time. But other than that, we're good. We're happy. So I need to get this first oil change done, cut the filter open, see how everything looks, cross my fingers, hope everything's all right, and then we'll proceed with the rest. So there we are. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I promise Redwood will be more exciting. This stuff just nickel and dimes you on time and money. There we are. Thanks. See you later.